Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, the Burnley podcast. This is the debrief for Swansea City 0, Burnley 2. We're getting to the sharp end of the championship season. Burnley getting 3 points on the road. Leeds United dropping points. Sheffield United winning the Sheffield derby. Everything's suddenly just tightened up at the top of the championship. Just 2 points separate leaders, Leeds United and Burnley in third. With me, Simon Evans, Woody and Chris Borden. Don't know why I didn't give you your full name there, Woody, but Paul Woodhouse in Cleveland. There we go. For those who are keeping a check to discuss that. We'll start with our American contingent, because I think you had a bit more success in seeing more of the game than me and Chris. So, Simon, I was a bit nervous going into this game. Changes from Scott Parker, perhaps to be expected. Laurent coming in for Hannibal, being the kind of main one, really. And we'd kind of suggest in the podcast that Hannibal and Brownhill doesn't really work together, so bringing Laurent in, so clearly Scott Parker listening to that on the trip down to South Wales. But the kind of nervousness I didn't need to have that nervousness, did I really? Because we won it at a canter.
We got off to a good start and stayed on top. I think his team selections, which were basically Daz Bentley's team selections, I think they were spot on. If anything, Brownhill getting yet another goal. Is that 13? I think this season. Yeah. And people are saying, like, 13's amazing for a central midfielder and stuff. He's playing as a second striker there yesterday. I mean, he's right up there. He comes back, he tracks and he works and he does his shift, but he's really in an advanced role there. I mean, people can say what they want about Parker, and we have had some dull games this year. There's no doubt about that. But he's effectively playing 4-2-4 there at Swansea because Brownhill's right up there with Fleming and then two wingers. And we went at them. We were on the front foot from the start, got the goal and never looked back really. And I thought there were some excellent individual displays that no doubt we can go into later on. But it really was the ultimate sort of Parker ball in its best version with a little bit more risk taking and a bit more offensive and really the professional complete job.
Yeah, Woody, we'll perhaps come on to some of those individual performances, but I think I called Josh Brownhill on more than one occasion the ghost, and it wasn't meant as a compliment, but he does ghost into that 6-yard box. You know, pretty much all of his goals are kind of carbon copies, aren't they? That he kind of drifts in from that second striker role, and you know, I think with Josh, he's somebody who we've discussed many times. He's too good for the Championship, really, but not perhaps at that Premier League level. He's in that kind of midsection, but he's been outstanding, this season for Burnley. 13 goals, as Simon said, perhaps not surprising given what he's played, but he has missed a few games due to injury and then not being selected when he's been back in contention, has it?
He's about the only one who doesn't get a nosebleed or an attack of the vapours when he gets in the 6-yard box. Yeah, it was a lovely little cut-in, Fleming cutting the ball back, and is there just to tap it in. And he kind of had a weird double half assist for the second one as well. He was in those advanced positions, and, you know, if it wasn't always through technical ability, it was through harrying and being a persistent menace that he was winning the ball back. And he definitely had a good game yesterday, as did the other two Joshes, to be fair. And like Simon said, it was all very professional. We had it all wrapped up for once very, very early in the game. And yes, Swansea were no muppets by any means. And they did come into it later in the game, like various sides do. But it's not, you know, we know who we are. We know what we do. We get record-breaking clean sheets on the end of it.
Yeah, and we've often talked, Chris, haven't we, about the defensive record. That is a record-breaking clean sheet now for second tier. I mean, it's teams perhaps aren't troubling us as much as, you know, we'd perhaps expect, but there is that kind of almost aura about that back five, isn't there? That I think you've said before, you know, once you go 1-0 ahead, once you get that first goal, you're probably not going to lose, are you? Because you're just not going to concede.
No, I think we've seen the blueprints over, with different personnel as well over a couple of years. Burnley don't really like it up them, but there's only really two Paul Heckingbottom sides who played into that. One with Sheffield when they beat 5-2 at Bramall Lane and North End in the Cup. It seemed to start really with Company's season in charge, where teams were reticent. They gave that Company side a real respect without having necessarily earned it at that stage. It's a strange one for me. Honestly, I've seen teams on a number of occasions. If they're prepared to throw caution to the wind, you can cause Burnley problems. But a lot of these games, that's it. Estevan, Egan Riley are cruising through with cigars on, and James Trafford can pull his deck chair up. The Swansea had an absolute, a gilt-edged opportunity yesterday. I think Perez gets sucked too central, really, but the lad's got 50p for an header. managed to head it nearer the corner flag, I think. If Addy scored then, it makes life interesting in the last few minutes. But I think the game was wrapped up within a quarter of the time, and I mean, they're going to write books about this season from a defensive standpoint, aren't they? It's absolutely ludicrous to have, with 38 games down, to have conceded 11 goals. It's just mind-bending. Mind-bending. And I think a lot of people thought when it was 9, many moons ago, when we conceded 9 goals, you're going back about 3 months, and you thought, well, are they going to maintain that over the second half of the campaign? And they have done. And with 8 games to go, it's going to be a landmark defensive season. This is going to be, like I say, the Iron Curtain Burnley defence of 100 years or so ago. It's staggering what they're doing. But the caveat is that it's got to end in a promotion. Otherwise, it's going to have that asterisk next to it, really.
Yeah, and Simon, I know as a podcast team, we've been a little bit, I don't know, we've been split a little bit sometimes at various parts of the season over whether, we're good enough to get into top 2, whether Sheffield United and Leeds are pulling too far ahead, and, whether we've still got a chance, whether we're drawing too many games, and all of those, the answer to all of those questions is probably yes and no at various points of the season. But are you feeling a bit more confident now that everything has suddenly just squeezed up? I mean, Leeds United's record, I think, in March is pretty woeful, really. 1 win, 2 draws, and a loss. It's not quite the full Leeds United bottle job, but that's certainly dragged them back into contention of perhaps falling out of there. Are you kind of thinking we might be peaking at the right time? We might just be hitting our stride, and are you a bit more confident now than perhaps you were 5 or 6 games ago that the top 2 is a legitimate target?
Well, 1 game ago. I mean, I weren't feeling too confident after that West Brom game, to be honest. But we looked like the best team in the division yesterday. I don't think those two put together performances like that very often, because it was just quality all the way through the team, really. And I think there are criticisms that can be made of those home performances where we just seem to have, as we did against West Brom, not had that urgency to go and get the 3 points at the end, because we are so drilled into this system, which is something as Burnley fans we should be used to, with seeing teams that have had it drilled into the system without risking a bingo sound effect here. We've, you could see it yesterday. I mean, Connor Roberts, there wasn't any great fanfare when he got his new contract, and he's a player who you always hear fans saying we could do with another right back at some stage and so on. I thought yesterday, just watching him against his former club, wasn't it? He plays right back in a very different way, doesn't he, to a lot of people, because he's with 2 wingers. He's not going bombing up in support all the time, although he does do occasionally. But you can see him immediately going and tucking into that central midfield role to allow Josh Laurent then or Josh Cullen to go forward. He does loads of work, but he does very intelligent work as well, doesn't he? He's got to know where he's going there. He's got to know when it's time to go down the wing and when it's time to tuck in and be a holding midfielder. I mean, he's playing 3 positions there, really. And I know it's nothing radically new in football. Pep started that thing with the full-back that goes into central midfield. But he does it really, really well. And yesterday was the perfect example of it. I thought at that end of the field, he made a huge difference. And we're doing that. We're keeping clean sheets with a full-back who goes into midfield on one side and a left-back who's bombing forward, supporting Anthony on the other side, because our 2 centre-halves are that good together that they can play as a 2. When those full-backs are forward. And we're not worried. We're not worried that, if it's 3 against 2 or 2 against 2, there were a couple of times when the ball got over the back and their guys got a sort of yard on Esteve and then he just puts the accelerator on. And, people say Rolls Royce, and he was just pulling up in front of the Ritz and just dropping off his passenger and going away with the ball. He was absolutely outstanding again defensively. I know I'm being ridiculously positive here, but I do think that when you look at it within the framework of the way he wants to play, we were taking more risks yesterday, and we showed we can do that because we've got the players who've got the flexibility and the ability to recover in difficult situations. So, yeah, I am feeling confident. I think you said, didn't you, even if we end up in the playoffs, I'm still confident we'll get through a playoffs if we do. I mean, if we can't catch them two, then they've had an unbelievable end to the season, I think, because I do think we are peaking at the right time. I think we'll end the season well. And if those two go 100% from now on, which I don't think they will, then fair enough, we have to go through the playoffs. But no, I'm very satisfied with where the team is at the moment.
Yeah, and Woody, I mean, I think I've said a few times, I think we'll lose less games than both Sheffield United and Leeds, which I think opens that up. And I'd said that before Leeds lost that last game. But just, is there any, I know fans are want us to be a bit more devil's advocate. I mean, that's a bit too optimistic from Simon, is it? Are we all going to agree and get absolute pelters on various fans forums for not having an alternative view? Are you as confident as Simon that we're peaking at the right time? I mean, you are Mr. Turning a corner and then coming back, and have we turned a corner again? But are you as confident as Simon?
Maybe not quite as confident, because it's a weird division, isn't it? I mean, I'm just looking at it now, and yes, you'd argue out of that top six, there's probably only Coventry who are really going on a charge, but we've got 4 wins out of 5. It's a really simple equation. If we go 100%, and that includes Sheffield United, we go up. Leeds are having a little bit of a wobble, and it's always been one of those divisions. Normally, somebody runs away with it. Very rarely do you get a top 3 such as this, but somebody has to take it by the scruff of the neck if they want to win it by 6 points or so. They've got to go on and win the next 8 or 9 games or whatever it is. It's not a difficult equation, but it's a pretty difficult ask. So yeah, if somebody slips up and we don't, we go up. It's as simple as that. And the point is, I think we're starting to see performances. I think we're looking more balanced. I think with Edwards on the right, even if he isn't playing a blinder, is more often than not now getting double marked, so it's creating more space for people to be able to run into. And I think Perez and Anthony work very well together down that left. I think there are a lot of positives. I think we're looking a lot better, and I think it's a good time to do it as well.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, the international break always comes at the wrong time, doesn't it? Whether you go into it on a losing, you go into it on a defeat, you want to be able to kind of get back out and get going again. But you'd kind of think that, for all Scott Parker talked about, it's good going into the international break on the run that we're on. You'd kind of almost wish we weren't having to fanny about with a couple of, England internationals with a questionable choice for Mr. Tuchel and kind of getting straight back into championship action, because I'm certain the players would want to, really just keep kicking on, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it's an awkward time of year, time of season to be having the break. I mean, obviously, every March we get these windows, but that's it. With 8 games to go, I don't know. We don't know the full prognosis of Humphrey's injury. I don't know. I mean, for all we know, he may be out for the season. I don't. You hear whispers that he might not play again this season, but the window might give him a bit of extra time to recuperate. Again, the likes of Redmond getting a bit more training time under his belt. Benson, etc. The ones who haven't had an awful lot of first team football. Ramsey, might Ramsey have an impact still? Because I still think.
Well, I think Parker said they were hoping to get some 11v11 action for Ramsey, kind of one of these behind closed doors friendlies, clearly. So I guess maybe you think
too late for these lads now, though, isn't it? It's too late. It is a bit,
isn't it? You're coming in cold into a kind of red hot end of the championship season, aren't you?
You are, and you do need to build up that little base of match fitness, not just physical fitness. as Edwards is beginning to show now. He's just putting that little run of the games together, and even when he's not at his most, that's it, his most sparkling best, he is creating time and space in other areas, as we've suggested previously. I'd say it's the same for everyone. Everyone's in the same boat. I look at Sheffield today. I expected them to win the derby today because I think they're on a different level from Sheffield Wednesday. And they can go into that game with O'Hare on the bench and Sousa missing and Cannon on the bench. And they've got, it might be one of them that they've ground out again, which they've got a habit of doing. But I don't know if the quality is there from the rest of the Championship to halt Leeds and Sheffield and ourselves. And it's just getting our noses in front. We keep getting a little chink of light, like I say, putting the pressure on, switching the pressure onto Sheffield United today. And it's just getting on. Can we get our noses in front? And if we can, I think we can see it over the line. But it's going to be one hell of a task. I know it's only like a one result swing at the moment, but it's just about getting that advantage over one or both of these sides.
Yeah, and Simon, let's pick up on some of them individual performances. I mean, we've obviously been waxing lyrical about Jadon Anthony quite a bit, but he got on the score sheet yesterday. There was quite a nice Instagram post of him basically showing a message he'd got from his dad about bringing the vibes, and I think vibes is one of his big things that all the players buy into. But Edwards has kind of unlocked him a little bit, even though he's been forced to switch from perhaps his favoured wing, hasn't he? Were you impressed with Jadon Anthony's performance yesterday at Swansea?
Yeah, I was. I mean, he was fortunate in a way that the ball came back to him because he had an abysmal shot just before that, didn't he, that first one? But no, he played really, really well. I mean, there was a little debate on the message board about his first touch where they made the classic message board mistake of saying, best first touch I've ever seen from a Burnley player, and was being like given pelters for disrespecting Doug Collins and various other players. I mean, let's say definitely one of the best first touches I've ever seen from a Burnley player. His end product still isn't all what you'd want it to be, but his crossing has improved a lot this season as well. He puts a lot more dangerous balls into the box. And he's so smooth on the ball, isn't he? He when he brings it in those perfect Jadon Anthony situations, which I think if we do go up, he'll get more of in the Premier League if he's still with us. Because, he'll get more one-on-one situations, won't he, where teams are pushing forward in numbers and he gets that. When he can bring that ball down out of the sky and then just glide past the defender and into space, he can be devastatingly effective there. It is a shame that, players like that who are hitting some really good form are going to have this 2 weeks off now. It is. I do think it's come at a bad time. And when I saw that England squad, I was just surprised Ashley Westwood hadn't got a call up, to be honest, because he's bossing it for Charlotte in MLS in midfield. He absolutely outplayed Sergio Busquets at Inter Miami last week. Seriously, he's playing really well. He's extended his career a lot better than most people had thought after that injury at Burnley. But it's not a great England squad, that is it, when you look at it. My goodness, that's a story for another day, perhaps. Yeah, the Anthony's been outstanding. I hope he can come back in 2 weeks' time and carry on, pick up where he's left off.
Yeah, and Josh Laurent, I think, is the other one, Woody. I mean, he is perhaps the bargain of the season from a Burnley point of view, given the fact that, he costs so little in a kind of run of 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 transfer windows where we've waxed quite a lot of money on players who haven't quite worked out. But also the fact that I think quite a few Stoke fans were quite happy to give him a piggyback to Turf Moor. I guess it kind of shows working under different managers brings different things out of players playing in different systems. But we've said it a couple of times, he makes us tick, doesn't he? When he's in that side alongside Cullen, allowing Brownhill to get further forward, doing the dirty work, the mopping up, the physicality that he brings, that was all on display again yesterday, wasn't it, at Swansea?
Yeah, it's sometimes these little turns of pace that still shock me to this day. There must be some slow folks in Swansea, but he can carry the ball, he can get in the right spots, and I think to Simon's point with regards to Anthony's final product, Laurent's final product, if they all had Brownhill's final product, we'd have pissed this league by now. It's just a little bit of a shame that they aren't all, quite as complete as we want them to be, but that's why we're in the Championship. But I think he's been, when he's very good and when he's on, Laurent is he looks like he should be the first or second name on the team sheet, and I think sometimes he just maybe gets a little bit leggy with having all these weird 3-day breaks and whatnot. But when he's fresh, and we looked fresh yesterday across the board, and I think that was the thing. But yes, like everybody else has said, you're wanting to play another game as soon as you can off the back of this to really push on.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, we kind of cried out so much for balance in this team, didn't we? Kind of, one of the things last year we felt everything was a bit unbalanced and obviously a level higher. And, we've seen this season with the results for, the promoted clubs that it is going to be difficult. But we seem to have found a balance probably since Christmas, since the transfer window, perhaps even a little bit before Christmas, that, this side's taken a little bit of time to bed in, but it feels like a really balanced starting 11, doesn't it? And like I think you said a little bit earlier, it's almost a 4-4-2-4, but that 4-2-4 is a really balanced 4-2-4 as opposed to it being all down one side or all down the other or a bit kind of imbalanced in midfield. Are you happy with the way Scott Parker's utilising his players in the system that he's utilising them in?
Well, yeah, I mean, you address the balance side of things. At times last season, we'd right fullbacks at left back and left fullbacks at centre half, and God knows what going on. It was a mess from day one. But we've got, you've two left-footed left backs, albeit Humphreys is a by trade, wants to be a centre half by the sound of things. But he's had a very, very good season, both at left back and when he's had to play right full back as well. St. Roberts, he's just got that nous, hasn't he? He's played a couple of years in the Premier League. That tournament football with Wales, which is mega. Centre halves who complement each other. Left pegger centre half, right pegger right centre half. But they've also got that sort of discipline. You speak about Brownhill sort of breaking into the box and nicking a goal. But I'll be surprised if you find many fitter footballers. Yeah. The graft he puts in. He's an absolute model professional. Talk about the work he does. I mean, it seems to be a given now. The top pros come back before they're due to go back into pre-season and really put the yards in to give themselves a head start. I mean, he's been doing that for donkey's years. You've got Anthony, who, is there a harder working wide player? I struggle to name one. It reminds me a bit of Junior Stanislas in that respect. He grafted Junior, and he could frustrate the life out of you on occasions, but he had quality. And I think we're seeing more of that. Anthony, he's a young lad. The more football he plays, regular starter, pressure's off him. He has been the main contributor of assists and chances. Pressure's off a little now because he's got an absolute game changer on the other side as well now. Yeah. And you can see he's almost sort of reveling in that as well, really. He's not the one who's expected almost to be the provider, and he's still chipping in. He's probably had more assists since Edwards arrived, to be honest. And I think you look up at Brownhill's assists as well on top of his goals. It's they just yesterday looked so fluid and full of invention, and you have the graft as well, and you mix all that together in a pot, and it's a fantastic mix. Let's see if they can replicate that more often at home. We'd have the recipe for a promotion team. It's just it's just been a bit tricky to watch at times at home. From where we were back in after the defeat at Sunderland in August, I think Parker's done an absolutely remarkable job. Wanting to just nudges just over the line if possible.
Yeah, and Simon, I don't know if anybody else has picked up on this, and maybe it's something that Parker's asking the players not to do or whatever. But what I have noticed is last season, and even during the Championship season under Vinny, we were seeing players straight after a match in Zurich, in Dubai, in all of these places, And there's nothing wrong with that. Look, if you got 3 days off, I'm quite happy you could do what you want with it. If I had the money, I'd be getting a private jet to Bruges every weekend, etc., etc. But I don't know, is there a different feel to what Parker expects from his players? And whilst it might not be this kind of show busy, sexy, here's, insert name of footballer here at, the 348th floor of some Dubai hotel overlooking, the ocean. But does it feel like this team's a bit more grounded in, what they need to do in terms of that hard work and mixing some of that talent with guile? And there's loads of, bullshit quotes that you get about talent only being 20% and all this kind of crap. It's something that I've thought about over the last couple of weeks. And as we're coming up to an international break, I'll probably be proved wrong. And Josh Laurent will have his feet up in the Seychelles, and Josh Cullen will be in wherever people from the East End go, South End or whatever it might be at the end of the pier. But do you feel like there's a different, not an attitude, but a different culture, and that's contributed perhaps to the two things really? A, that consistency that we're showing in terms of being defensively sound, keeping clean sheets, but also perhaps to the fact that we don't always fire on all cylinders. So there is a bit of a kind of payoff with, yes, we're grounded in hard work and almost this working classness, but that's been a bit of a albatross around his neck at times as well. Does that make sense? I've kind of realised I've waffled about not going to Dubai there a bit.
Yeah, I think I understand the question. Yeah, I think the team. Look, there's a big debate about coaching where people who were disciplinarians in the past are considered very old school, aren't they? It's one of the things that plagued a former manager of ours, that kind of reputation. And, you need to be more a coach who puts his arm around the player who's not performing rather than the one who rips into him and so on. And I think that is true, and you see that with this newer generation of coaches. But to me, Parker seems to be like a synthesis of the two approaches, really, because I think you see him definitely as the man who'll put his arm around a Hannibal or support a player who's having a bit of a tough time or something. And you can imagine him, when he leaves a player out, having a very, good chat with them about it, and not just like, you've got to suck it up and fight back to get your place in the team sort of thing. But I don't think he suffers fools either. That little clip we got, and we are only working off impressions and things like that, and those clips can sort of feed into them, can't they? But that little video clip of him giving them the day off after the Rovers game, wasn't it? Come back
3
on Wednesday.
3 days off, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah.
You come back on Wednesday. That implied, the way they sort of reacted to that was like, that was quite a rare thing, wasn't it? That doesn't happen very often. That was a little
pregnant pause, didn't he? And the last thing, lads, see you on Wednesday, and they all just kind of went up like the teacher basically said, we're getting the telly out, we're watching the World Cup, you're not doing double match kind of thing.
Bedingfield on now, Bedingfield's coming on.
yeah. But you just sort of think that they're probably used to him saying, and after that fucking performance, you're in tomorrow. So there probably is a bit of that there. I think there is a bit of that there, and I think he has more than earned their respect. I think he totally is the boss. He knows how to run a tight ship, I think, but he's not a screamer and shouter. It's clearly not his style, is it? So, a sort of quiet discipline, and I think that's probably the best way of running a modern football club with the kind of characters you get in the dressing room. But again, we've got ourselves back into a situation. He's been able to build something where, going back to documentaries, when Dave Chackett said to Vince and company, who's your 4 or 5 guys? Who are you guys? Who are you standing by? And there was no answer to that with that mess we saw in the Premier League. Now, who are you guys? Well,
yeah.
I mean, that entire team is full of you guys.
Move it forward, yeah.
I mean, that entire team is full of characters. There doesn't seem to be any eggs there. I mean, the only player who came in with a reputation as being a bit of a hothead and so on was Hannibal, and he seems to have totally bought into everything. I mean, there were no, he didn't come on and get himself sent off yesterday because he was fed up of being dropped or whatever. And he'll play a big part, I'm sure, towards the end of this season. And I'm sure Scott Parker were telling him that yesterday because, the players pick up injuries or things don't work. And again, he looked all right again on the left, didn't he? Yeah. Coming into that slot. So, yeah, I think Parker has found that culture. And it's the right one for our club as well. You mentioned working class. We like that kind of thing about our club and our team, don't we? But it's sprinkled with, mixed in with a more sophisticated tactical approach, perhaps, than we've seen sometimes in the past. And yesterday, a bit of risk-taking as well. So, It's good. It's good. I think Parker's done a fantastic job. Whether Burnley fans really have warmed to him, I don't know. I'm not in position to say. I don't know. You guys, you're nearer to it than us, obviously. But I suspect, are the Scotty Parker's Claret and Blue Army chants going out? I don't think there are there? But I feel he's earned that sort of status now.
Yeah, he's a weird one, isn't it, Chris? I mean, at home games, fans are clearly kind of, buoyed by what they're seeing on the pitch. And you mentioned earlier, it's not been the prettiest of watches at times this season. But there is something kind of very understated about Parker, isn't there? In terms of, I imagine he's going to spend his kind of international break at some kind of cottage somewhere in the home counties, having a nice game of Uno with the kids, and perhaps surfing about on the Tom Brown website to get himself some more clobber with the stripes on the sleeves, looking at the spring-summer collection.
Blow another $4,000 on a coat, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a bit of a weird paradox in terms of he talks about his working-class upbringing, yet wears a, $4,000 cardigan. It's almost, I don't know, it's that model of you work hard.
Casual then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you work hard, you get what you get your rewards from the work you put in, and that perhaps doesn't, like I say, it's not quite as sexy as Vincent Kompany coming in and being all kind of like, Vincent Kompany-esque and winning the Premier League and etc. But do you think that approach perhaps gives us a chance? I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I'm buoyed by Simon's optimism that we're going to run away with the league or whatever we're going to do. But does that give us a chance?
Say that.
We're near enough, but top two certainly. Does that give us a chance going into next season in terms of a platform to build sensibly for Premier League survival, as opposed to, doing what we've done in the past couple of windows and just, spunked a load of cash on, champ manager regens and things like that?
I mean, should they be promoted?
Yeah.
I would like to think we'll not throw the baby out with the bloody bathwater like we did 2 years ago. I think there's a lot of, we could talk about who's in charge of the recruitment and, are we looking off data? A lot of the signings to me, and again, I've no sort of inner angle on this. They look to me like Parker's doing. We spoke about it's. Anthony's very much, he's a player he worked with previously. He's seen there's a real talent there. Give him the platform. He obviously liked Hannibal from what he'd seen in his spells at Birmingham, etc. He's obviously had his eye on Laurent, I think, for a bit as a good championship performer. Edwards, how on Christ's name have we managed to secure Marcus Edwards in the championship? And that, to me, it's all down to his respect for Parker, Parker's knowledge. And, by sort of video evidence we've seen, Matt Williams being able to wheel him with his agent to get him to come for half the money that they were looking for. I think that sort of mix, getting the right bodies in, the right characters, you can see that the team spirit's as good as anything I've ever witnessed. And we've had some very, very, very strong groups who bloody go to war and die for each other, sort of thing.
What era would that be in, Chris?
Well, no, that could go back all the sides. You go back to like Cotterill's teams, great team spirit. Coyle got that team over the line. They've always had good character. Cotterill put his stall out for good characters. You obviously want gifted footballers, but if you're a gifted footballer, if you're a bit of a weapon, no, I don't want you. So they were all to a man. That team that Coyle got promoted, absolutely. And you mentioned Laurent before. It sort of reminds me a bit of that time. You've got a player here who is a journeyman. He's played he's played all over the shop. He's played at Bury, the bottom of the pyramid, and he's earned his championship shot the hard way, and he'll be desperate to pull a shirt on with a little Premier League crest on his arm. That'd be, that team of Coyles that Cotterill put together. The Caldwells and the Carlisles and the Duffs and people like Graham Alexander again. That little crusade to get Graham Alexander at the age of 38 to play Premier League football. It's another it's another percent or two. How much do you want to be in the Premier League? So it's that grounded nature. They're not a team of mercenaries, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, Josh Lawrence, a classic example of it. There's no way on Y-Scout or whichever software Burnley's using to get its data on players that there's like a green flag flashing next to Josh Lawrence's name when he's at Stoke City. He's not coming up as like a super bargain prospect that you're going to be able to turn into money and so on. And he's a good signing. That's using your football intelligence and your nous and your knowledge that Parker has. I mean, that's true. I think even there we're mixing and matching it a bit, aren't we? Because, Sonny from Denmark, that he probably is a Y-Scout red, green flag. A Perez, yeah. But, the ones you've mentioned there absolutely aren't. And, this is us being smart in that respect. And this is where, again, we can talk about the ownership who came in obsessed with data stuff and, AI Scout and things like that. And, you look at it and you think, like, there's a reason why, when Stan stopped being Burnley manager, he carried on working for years as a scout for people, didn't he? Steve Bruce, I think he worked for Steve Bruce, didn't he?
Discovered Harry Maguire and Andy Robertson, I think.
Yeah. And there's people like that about, and there's lots of people in football you can turn to who will know what kind of character they are in a dressing room. And I think we saw the toll, obviously, Dyche was very strong on checking out people's background. Obviously he was.
Bingo!
But, that is absolutely fundamental to it. And I think Company wasn't strong enough on that because some of the players we've signed, let's not mention names, some of the players we've signed, it wouldn't have taken a great amount of research to realise that maybe we were, bringing in some problems. So I think that's another example of the club sort of stepping back a little bit from their sort of ideological commitments and being a bit more pragmatic and sensible and a bit of old school mixed in with the new.
Yeah, and Woody, I mean, I think Jamie Oyland said to us kind of, there's so much data these days, you've got to go on feel, you've got to look. And he mentioned Branthwaite to Everton, the basically the data department had basically gone, no, he's not really on his list, blah. I think Jamie had seen him at Carlisle or wherever he was, and Jamie really pushed for him and said, look, send somebody to go and look at him, right? He's got to be worth a look. I think Bobby Gold tells a tale of going to see Stuart Pearce play for Wealdstone, and he took his wife to Yeovil, and then basically they left after 40 minutes, and his wife was like, you can't leave, what you leave? And he kind of went, I've seen enough, I've seen enough. Stuart Pearce, he basically put a player in the stands and he went, I've seen enough, 40 minutes, that's enough to convince me. It does feel like there's a few more eyeballs on players as opposed to just relying on huge Jumbotron screens like I know you watch your highlights packages back, going up and down like it's the New York Stock Exchange.
Numbers won't win you anything. It'll only tell you so much. You've got to get the insight. You've got to know a little bit about the chemistry. You've got to know the types of players and the types of people that you're going to be working with and what you can get out of them. I think the biggest contrast between how Company went about things, obviously, and Parker and various other managers is we know with the Johan Monson clip that it was obviously very much about Company having a bit of an iron fist and being able to shame and show and be that type of a manager, which isn't necessarily a leader. A lot of people talk about Alex Ferguson, the hairdryer treatment or whatever, but he knew when to do that versus...
Sparingly.
Exactly. And Parker will do it every now and again, but I think he knows the chemistry and he's got people who understand the chemistry and a little bit of the magic and what it kind of takes. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get it, but we've seen as this season's developed, after having the bloody rug pulled out of him so ridiculously, to be able to then mould this new side, a team and a side prior to that who were going to piss this championship and would have done quite handsomely. If we manage to go up through this, then the money ball that we've played, and give little Al a little bit of credit around that as well, like Sam was saying, and then the ability of Parker to be able to mould this side, and then the individuals within the side as well has to be commended. And I think it'll be a very good promotion if we do go up.
Yeah, far too positive. So I'm just going to say, don't really like Alan Pace's cap, and Connor Roberts has got a shit tash. So there's the devil's advocate section for today's podcast. Just so we're all not agreeing and we're not all being bloody positive.
Natasha Bedingfield, I'm not having
and the Natasha Bedingfield on the dressing room playlist is absolute bullshit. So there we go, a bit of negativity. You know, you could be a close-knit set of players, but fuck me, get somebody who knows the music to start picking the tunes.
I'm not even having Daniel Bedingfield, never mind Natasha Bedingfield.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, let's leave it there, because it's been a very positive, after, again, another positive weekend for the Clarets. The Clarets now just 2 points off the table, as we said, right at the top of the show. Going into the international break, James Trafford and CJ Egan-Riley both getting England call-ups. CJ for the under-21s, Trafford for the senior squad, one of 4 goalkeepers. Perhaps we'll have a bit of a look back over the international break. Perhaps get Daz on as well and have a bit of a look at Chris and Daz when they've covered Burnley players playing for England, primarily kind of Jay Rodriguez, perhaps.
Tarky
as well, yeah, of course. That was very fleeting. Nick Pope, Tom Heaton. There we go. We've got loads, haven't we?
Michael Keane, Jack Cork.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent.
There should have been a few more.
All 3 minutes for Corky. I'll tell you a quick stat before we go, but Corky's England career is the second shortest in history.
Who's the shortest? Not David Nugent, is it, surely?
No, it was the fullback at Liverpool, Martin Kelly.
Martin Kelly, yeah.
He went to Palace.
There we go. Excellent. Well, hope you enjoy whatever you're going to be doing next Saturday, because we have got a Saturday off. I hate international breaks. I'll be doing my best to probably just get absolutely shit-faced, to be honest, down at the Beer Necessities in Todmorden. There we go. If you are in the area and you are a member of the West Yorkshire Clarets, do come and say hello before games or after games. I know a few people come in there, a couple of the London Clarets, Fermo, etc., come into the bar. But you do come and say hello. We're usually propping up the bar, a couple of us Burnley fans.
Do we get a discount? Do we get a discount? Yeah.
Even I don't get a discount. One of the rules of running your own bar is don't give yourself a discount. There we go, apparently. There we go. But do come down and see us. Do enjoy whatever you're going to do with your international break on Saturday. Get yourself excited for the final few games of the season, because it's going to be a roller coaster, I'm sure, for all teams involved. But until then, until we see you again, enjoy your week and up the Clarets.
How many times do I have to tell you? Stop moaning!